Welcome to Tending Your Dreams with host Anita Brooks, offering you stories, skills, and strategies for living life with real courage and rare passion. You are created for an abundant life. The question is, are you living it? Dare to choose a life of passion now. Warning, some of the subject matter may get real and raw, with occasional laughter, but that's where the great stuff comes from. So, are you ready? It's time to get serious about your dreams. Let's Tend Talk.
Hey, Tend Talkers, welcome back to another episode of Tending Your Dreams. Well, I am so excited to share with you part 2 on identifying your invisible drains and plugging them. You know, even at the time that I'm recording this, one of my business coaching clients is a leader. You know, a lot of times leaders are misinterpreted or people don't have a clear view of what all they deal with. Because here's the thing. Leaders are people too. Leaders are simply people who have a lot of responsibility on their shoulders. And as much as some of us get to point to another person and blame them or say, well, if they would only do this, or if they would stop doing that. Well, see, a leader doesn't get to get away with that. The buck does stop with them. Even if they try to blame someone else, even if they try to make excuses, frankly, as a leader, it never works. They don't get the benefit of opting out because they might try to give themselves an out, but the rest of the world is not going to have it. And if you're a leader, you know what I'm talking about. But here's the thing, and I shared this on last week's episode. You know, my friend Darren says, we all lead someone. The question is, are we leading well? And I agree with him. Why does he say that? Because people are watching us. People are determining whether or not something is okay or not okay for them to do by the behaviors that we exhibit, by the choices we make and the decisions. You see, we do influence people. That's why I twisted or tweaked, if you will, what Darren said. And I said, we all influence someone, but the question is, are we influencing well? Essentially, they mean the same thing. But people will absolutely follow the examples we set above any words that we speak. It doesn't mean that our words don't hold power. You know, I tell people all the time, words have the power to harm or to heal, depending on how we wield them. But I want to challenge you today to identify some of those invisible drains that are maybe affecting your leadership or influencing ability. What are those areas of your life that are taking time, energy, money, or other resources from you? And frankly, you're just tired of it. So I want to ask you some questions that I often ask some of my coaching clients, especially those clients who are expressing fear or frustration or anger. And let me just say this too. If you find yourself often angry or highly frustrated, I'm going to challenge you to ask yourself a question. This is that question. What is it you are afraid of? Because I've been challenged a few people in return who've told me they don't agree with what I'm getting ready to say. They don't believe it. And I'll be honest with you, I was in the skeptical group the first time I ever heard it. But since then, I have tried this probably hundreds of times by now, not only in my own life, but in my working with other people, either as a speaker or a coach. But if you will peel enough layers off of a situation that you are dealing with, and by peeling away the layers, I mean asking yourself pointed questions. Why, how, what, where, when? Those type of questions. What will happen is eventually you will peel enough layers away to get to the core issue. And if there's ever been an invisible drain, it's the fact that people don't get to their core issues. They think they've identified the problem, but frankly, they're going in the wrong direction. or it's only a surface problem and it doesn't go to the deeper level. Actually, what they think they've identified is a symptom instead of the problem itself. But when it comes to anger or frustration, every single time to date, without exception, I have found fear at the core. Whether it's something that I'm doing with myself or something I'm doing with someone else, I find that fear. What it can look like, let me give you a couple of examples. So let's say at work, you are a leader and you're getting so frustrated, even on the verge or maybe very much angry because your employees are not pulling their weight. They're not being productive. They're not meeting deadlines, or they're not meeting quota. They're not doing the things that they're being paid to do, frankly. So what fear could there be in that? Couldn't you just be angry to be angry? Well, actually, I think what it is that you are afraid of how that would reflect on you. Maybe consequences that would come back to you, because let's face it, if you're the leader, ultimately you are responsible for what your people do. Fear in how their actions or inactions may affect customers and clients. Could there be fear that it could cause issues at the bottom line, and probably will? Absolutely. But until you identify that that is the core problem that you are dealing with, and that's why your emotions are so stirred up, it can get you off on a tangent and going in the wrong direction. So I've come up with some questions that I use with my coaching clients that I think might help you as a dream tender. Because see, it doesn't matter whether you work directly with other people, whether you supervise them or not. Again, you're leading someone. If nothing else, you're leading the people that you want to follow you as you pursue your dreams. So let me ask you some very specific questions, and I want you to just consider the answers to them. The first one is, when you find yourself in conflict or frustrated or angry, or even afraid, is this situation within your sphere of control? Can you directly control it? If not, are you trying to infuse yourself into a situation that, frankly, you may potentially make worse by trying to help? Or are there details that you may not be aware of that could alter how someone else is handling the situation? And then this next one, this is a big question for you to consider. And I'm going to tell you, we talk about the TEND acronym, and T is take courage. This one's going to require courage on your part. But if you'll do it, I promise you, it will change your life. So what is that question? What is lacking attention in my area while I'm expending time and energy concerning myself with what others are or are not doing? Brave dream tenders will ask themselves that question repeatedly when they find that they are frustrated. So the second question, if this situation is within my sphere of control, how am I treating the people involved? If asked, would they describe my actions as professional and thorough while equally calm and reassuring? Do those I lead see me as someone they can count on to make well-balanced decisions? Am I someone whose actions support what I say? Do I follow through and keep my word? I often speak on this subject, and I train on it. It's better not to make a promise than to make one and not fulfill it. Because when you are a promise breaker, even in small ways, people feel like they cannot trust you. So do your subordinates see you as someone they can trust who has their back? And again, I'm going to ask another big question. Are you giving others what you would like to receive if the tables were turned? Let me give you some examples of what I mean by that. If the roles were reversed and you had to send an email to your leader, your superior, how would you want them to react to it, given the current situation? And be boldly honest in your answer. Don't give the answer that you think you want because that's how you want your employee to think or feel. Be honest. How would you feel? When you call someone, how do you want them to react in response to your call? Do you want their voice to sound as if they're glad to hear from you? That they are warm and welcoming? Do you want to feel encouraged or discouraged? I think we all know what the answers to that are, but we get what we give. How often are you giving the people who call you that kind of tone to your voice? Really consider what people are receiving in response to you. And then when frustration rises, ask yourself, what am I afraid of? What consequences do I fear? Why do I feel as if I need to control? Who might I hurt if my efforts to control escalate? At my job, in my community, at home, and even within myself. And then here's the big question, if you will, to this series. Where do I seem to get myself in trouble? Are there patterns in my past that I can use as warning flags to protect me in the future? Do I have a tendency to take control and dominate dialogue versus listening and considering other points of view? When I ask someone a question, do I cut them off as they're answering to add my fix-it thoughts? Now, I'm not saying that you do all of these, but I am saying that I have observed these kinds of patterns in many other leaders. And if you are a dream tender, if you are pursuing a dream, you are a leader. You are an influencer. You are someone that other people are watching, if for no other reason than to find out how you're going to respond, what you're doing, what's working, what isn't working. So hopefully they can learn from you, because we all have a dream that we're trying to follow, that we're trying to make real, that we're trying to turn into a reality. So if you're a dream tender, other people want to learn from you, the good, bad, and the ugly. So as we think about those things, I just want to give you a few very simple tips, but they're powerful. These are the types of things that I have utilized in my own life that have transformed me, that have elevated my ability to influence, that they have helped me to succeed at a greater level. And my desire is that they would make a difference for you. So the first thing is to consider your listening skills. See, that can be a massive invisible drain. If you are one of those people who either is unaware of it or frankly just disregards it, and you dominate conversations, you cut people off, you assume you know what they're thinking better than they do, and so you gladly and consistently tell them what they're thinking, you are not going to be a successful dream tender. I'm sorry to tell you that, but that's just fact. See, people don't care so much about what you have to say unless what you have to say is going to help them. Human beings are selfish above all things. That's true of all of us. Yes, we can be very intentional to be others focused. And there are some of us who work hard at that every single day. But at our core, one of our invisible drains that we have to watch for and plug often is that sense of selfishness. And when we do not listen twice as much as we speak and focus on truly hearing the other individual, then we are not going to do well, no matter what it is that we're pursuing. We need to seek first to understand people, then to be understood. That will make a difference. You're given 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. I'm all extrovert. Let me just tell you, what I am explaining to you right now, this is not natural for me. Speaking is a natural ability that I have. But over 20 years ago, I began to start paying closer attention to how people were responding to me. And this is what I noticed. I noticed people's faces fall. I noticed that they would break eye contact. I noticed that their body language would pull back from me. I would notice sometimes when people would shut me off by, clasping their arms together in front of them. And almost every time, it was because I wouldn't even let them finish a sentence. I wouldn't let them express their full thought before I was chiming in or trying to tell my story. And, that's so interesting. Let me tell you about what happened to me. And frankly, it was a totally me-focused way of living life. I didn't mean to be that way. To be honest with you, most of the time, I didn't even realize I was that way. But when I did have the epiphany, instead of just shrugging my shoulders and going, well, that's just the way I am, I decided to do something to change it. And I have worked very hard for the last 20 plus years to develop myself into a good listener. One of the, I guess you would say the things I'm most proud of is the fact that so many people say that I'm a good listener. I don't do it perfectly. That natural extrovert in me, sometimes she rises to the occasion, especially if I get excited about something. But I will tell you that at least 85% of the time, when I am in a conversation with someone, I am focused on them. I focus on hearing with my ears and my heart and my mind so that I can fully understand what they're expressing, what they're going through, what their needs are. Do they just need to vent? Then I want to be there and let them vent instead of me popping in and trying to fix them. Are they looking for some advice or some answers? Well, I don't need to try to offer that until I fully hear them explain what their challenges are. It would be unwise for me to come in too soon and speak too quickly. So listen twice as much as you speak. It will plug so many invisible drains in your life. Another thing that I do that keeps a lot of invisible drains plugged is to ask more questions and make fewer statements at people, especially during challenging moments. Conflict is going to happen. It's going to happen to all of us. And frankly, not everyone is going to like us, and not everyone is going to work to get along with us. And it does take 2 people to have a healthy working relationship. But sometimes conflicts and challenges occur and they can blindside you, or you are at least involved in someone who's willing to work with you, but you just both are you're volatile in the moment. You're highly emotional. So I've learned that if I just breathe a little deep and listen first, and then when it's my turn to ask more questions instead of making statements to that person, it does a few things. One, it causes that person to think a little more deeply and to consider why they're emotional or why they're saying what they're saying. I learn things that I wouldn't have known otherwise. If I don't ask questions and I just make statements, I'm making a lot of assumptions, but assumptions can be very dangerous. So when you become a person who pursues answers and you really strive to hear what people say, it will plug the drain of conflict unbelievably in your life. Because even if someone doesn't like you, they'll respect you, because they may not even identify that it's the fact that you're asking more questions, but they'll know that you're interested in what they have to say. Well, another one is to slow down my speech I mean, if you've listened to me for very long, you know when I get excited, I tend to talk fast. I have to work on it continually. But slow your speech down just a bit. Bring your decibel down slightly and focus on sounding calm and reassuring when speaking to others, especially if you are in an influential or leadership situation. People need to know that you can be calm when things are highly emotional. They need to know that you can bring well-balanced views to the situation and that you are not being illogical. And when you slow your speech down, you bring your decibel down slightly and you focus on sounding calm and reassuring. That can help diffuse a volatile situation. Well, something else to think about when it comes to invisible drains is insecurity. Insecurity, I believe, is one of those very common invisible drains that many people carry with them through life. Even those who appear highly confident on the outside, even narcissists, it goes back to insecurity in their soul, in their spirit. So there's an affirmation that I use that has really helped me plug that drain. And it's simply this: you exist on purpose, with purpose, in order to fulfill an abundant purpose. So before you speak or act, ask yourself, what is the core purpose in what I'm getting ready to give or to share or to say? You know, my new book that's coming out in just a few weeks is called Exceedingly: Spiritual Strategies for Living on Purpose, with Purpose, and for an Abundant Purpose. I am so passionate about this subject. Too many people are going through this world telling themselves they don't have a purpose, they don't have anything to give, they don't have anything to offer like so-and-so. Stop. You exist on purpose, with purpose, in order to fulfill your own unique, abundant purpose. Remind yourself of that often. It will plug that drain of insecurity. And when you begin to really heighten your awareness of that, you'll begin to see more opportunities of purpose around you. Well, finally, the last thing that I want you to keep in mind when it comes to plugging invisible drains, and this will help you with your emotions, but it will also help you practically if you begin to look for ways to identify what I'm getting ready to share with you. Remember this: you cannot experience a miracle without first experiencing a problem. See challenges as potential miracles in the making versus something that turns your world upside down. I could share analogy after example after story of ways that I've seen this happen in my life. I remember one time in particular, I was managing a large river resort in my area, Ozark Outdoors. Beautiful place. But on any given Friday night between Memorial and Labor Day weekend, we may check in a couple of thousand people in just a handful of hours. So it can be very crazy and chaotic. Well, you can imagine how I felt on a Friday night in July when we lost electrical power. And I mean for hours. And everybody was coming to me because I was the leader. I was the one who had to come up with a solution. And at first I didn't know what to do. So the very first thing that I did is I asked everyone to give me just a few seconds. And I went back just to get by myself. And I went back to the restroom, frankly, because it was the one place where I knew I could be alone. I took a deep breath. I counted to 10. I said a prayer. And then I reminded myself, so we have a problem. What's the potential miracle in the making? Well, it took me a couple of other minutes, and then all of a sudden it dawned on me that there was an option to try something different just to get us through that moment. Well, let me tell you, it worked so beautifully that we integrated that and we began to use it from then on. And we speeded up the check-in process for all customers from that weekend forward because we had that problem. I never would have thought of it if the power hadn't went down. So the next time that the power goes off in your life, I just want you to consider what miracle might be in the making. The solution may not come to you immediately, but give it time and let your emotions come down. Thank you so much for joining me for this week's episode of Tending Your Dreams. I just want to remind you of the TEND acronym. Take courage, excel daily, never give up, and dare to dream bigger. Go to my website to get this week's free giveaway. Simply go to tendyourdreams.com/freebie32. Thank you so much, and I look forward to being with you again next week.
Thank you for joining us today. We encourage you to take the challenge and start tending your dreams. What's the next best step you should take? Tune in next time for a dose of fresh inspiration and practical motivation. You can do this. Go and tend your dreams.